welcome, and we are so glad you're here. And I probably do not even need to introduce our guest today, Scotty Parker. Scotty, I think everybody in town well, from what I hear talking to your friends, everybody in America knows you. I mean, you have done us proud with all of these accomplishments and meetings you go to and people you interact with, and we'll get to that as we talk. But I think one thing people would like to know is kind of talk about where you grew up and your parents as role models and that type of thing.
Well, I grew up in Little Raleigh. It was, a section of Rocky Mount. Mm-hmm. And, my parents made sure that I did what was right. They was not scared of whooping me at that time, and I had to go out and get my own switches if they gonna whoop me.
Ooh.
Go out and get and pick the switches. But also everyone in the neighborhood held me accountable. Not only me, had everybody, all the young people in the neighborhood accountable. And when I say that is, if we did something wrong or we was using foul language, they will correct us. And if they needed to whoop us, they could have the right. And then they'll call their parents, and then you get to know when you arrived at home. But and you listened to them. You didn't really disrespect anyone in the neighborhood, no matter what their age was.
Mm-hmm. And I know as having been a law enforcement officer for so long, it really breaks your heart to see the breakdown of a lot of that, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, it does. But that's the times we live in now.
Mm-hmm. Well, now Steve Wordsworth claims that your first job was working for him. Was that true, or did you?
I was a paper boy for a short amount of time because paper boy quit. But then like I said, I was taking a consumer business class, and so I learned how to write a letter requesting the interview at that time. So I submitted a resume in the paper. It didn't tell me where he was submitting it to, but just gave the address, and I submitted a resume for a job
at JR Steakhouse.
Right? Being JR Steakhouse, and I was hired, and I was there. I washed dishes and cooked French fries and anything that was needed. I did, and I think I was able to buy nice clothes because of the money I made there.
Mm-hmm. And that opened the door to create a lifelong friendship with the Wordsworth family, hadn't it?
It did.
And we'll talk how that evolved but Steve was somewhat of a role model to you for his law enforcement interest and fire department interest too, wasn't he?
Correct, because remember, Steve was in the fire department at West Edgecombe, and he was a law enforcement officer, volunteer in Edgecombe County. And, so our paths kind of run parallel because as my life went on, I was a fire rescuer in Stony Creek for 8 years. And then I also was a volunteer in law enforcement initially because I didn't want to get in law enforcement, but then I did get in law enforcement full time.
Rumor has it that one time there was an accident near your house and you took a cab to go there so you could help. Is that true?
Well, what happened was, it was a wreck at Country Club in 64. It's Buck Leonard now. I was in Stony Creek Fire Rescue. It was a wreck, and I left my house, and one of the members of Stony Creek Fire Rescue, when I turned by the power plant, had been involved in a wreck. So he was involved in a wreck, and so I was going to the scene to tell them they need help. I run out of gas.
No.
One time, so I run out of gas, so I runs to the scene and tell them. And so they always remind me of that. And then on another occasion is when the cab, I needed to get there, and I believe in saving people, so I was able to get on a cab and go. It's just your commitment to get there.
Well, and I have to say your commitment also to save people. Throughout, I talked to a number of your friends, and they all claim that they are your best friend and that you are their best friend. So you've got quite a legacy of people who consider you family, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But that you are so committed to kindness and courtesy and helping people as a law enforcement officer. Kind of tell us how you got into law enforcement and why that's been pervasive in your career.
Well, first of all, I think that my friends in high school and in school who was in Stony Creek Volunteer Fire Rescue. And I always, saw Stony Creek because what most people don't remember is back then you didn't have a West Edgecombe Rescue Squad. You didn't have a national emergency. Stony Creek ran thousands of calls a year. I'm pretty sure hundreds, a large number of calls. They ran all the calls in National Edgecombe County. So you saw Stony Creek in the community a lot. You saw them responding. So I talked with these two individuals. They asked me to join Stony Creek Fire Rescue as a junior, as a volunteer.
So how old would you have been then?
I want to say 15.
Okay.
Because I think 16 you can go to the senior department. I was 15, and so I joined Stony Creek Fire Rescue as a junior, which I was able to do everything that the seniors did. I couldn't drive the fire truck or ambulance service. I hadn't been trained for that, but it made me a better person. It made me. I saw people in time of need, and I think that's what built my foundation today. I saw a lot of deceased people. I saw people when they was in time of need, whether family members sick or was deceased, or we had to cut people out of a wrecked vehicle. So and keep in mind back then, Stony Creek Fire Department was the primary fire department for National Hospital because National was in the county at the time, has not been annexed in the city, have the service of the city of Rocky Mount Fire Department now. So Stony Creek Fire Department, we answer a lot of calls, and so I just saw people in time of need, and it was one of the individuals, many volunteers that stepped up to the plate to help.
Once you following that, you got more training, basic law enforcement, and kind of tell how your career evolved.
Well, I got training in Stony Creek, stayed in Stony Creek Fire Rescue for approximately 8 years. But while at Stony Creek, I went to basic law enforcement training and became a law enforcement officer. I didn't think I want to get in law enforcement full time. So Wayne Hathaway, the former chief of Charlesburg, who was killed in the line of duty, sponsored me to go to BLET, which is the basic law enforcement in Wilson. I went to BLET, successful completing it, and worked there as a volunteer and part-time a little bit. And then I decided I wanted to go to law enforcement full-time.
And so what job, once you got that degree, what did you do?
Well, once I complete that, I went to the National Police Department and worked there for 2.5 years as a law enforcement officer. And then I was interviewed and successfully accepted a position with the Roanoke Chowan Narcotics Task Force, which is a five-county narcotics task force unit that was based out of Hertford County, but I had Bertie, Hertford, Northampton Gates, and Martin County. And I worked there for 5.5 years.
Was that undercover? Or?
Well, the first year I was undercover, so that's the reason I got out of Stony Creek, because I would not be able to attend training. So the first year I was undercover, and after that I came out, I was promoted to be second in command and did that, and that's why I began to work federal investigations and doing narcotics investigations.
Do you train? I mean, your skill set would be such that I would think when they bring new people in, or through the years, you're retired now. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but I would think you would be the perfect person to train young people joining some of these departments and all. Well,
I'm a criminal. I'm a certified instructor, and I do teach some. I don't teach a whole lot because I'm very busy. And I think that my skill set may be a little rusty now, and I leave it to the young people that's really actively involved more and undercover to do that training.
But your humanity skill set is unparalleled. I mean, I think to a lot of the skills that you have with how to treat people, and all is just something that I see is sometimes missing, not necessarily law enforcement, but just people in general. And Scotty, you've always gotten along with everybody. And that's been real important to you, hadn't it?
Yes, but I think that I sit back in my younger age and today and watch people, and you pick out the positive people. I don't want to be involved if it's negative. And I seen we had a lot of people, black, white, Hispanic, male and female, in Eastern North Carolina, but especially in National Edgecombe County, who was role model to me. I sit back and saw them doing things positive. So I sit down and talk with them, And, you know, as a result of talking with them and listening to them, I learned. And so any position I have had, from the marshal to DMV to Nash County Sheriff's Office, I have always had the support of the community. Without the community, I would not have got in them jobs. You know, and what's unique is I had the blacks, the white, the male, the female, that's been all support me, either writing a letter or telling me you can do it, or making a phone call for me, or opening that door for me. And so, you know, I'm very blessed that people come together to support me. Without that support, I wouldn't have anything.
Well, and you give that support right back to them. I want your mother lived to see you in law enforcement, didn't she?
Yes.
I know she was mighty proud of you.
Well, I mean, you know, I think a lot of people would say that, you know, a boy from Little Raleigh, and keep in mind, Marty McCoy, who was a former Rocky Mount police officer, kept, and I think the chief was, you know, grew up down the street from me. But, you know, for all of us and other people from the community, grew up to get in law enforcement, we all just wanted to give back to the community. We want to show that we didn't have a whole lot when we were growing up. I felt like I was rich, though, you know, because, I mean, I just felt like I was rich, you know, and I didn't have much. But, I mean, my parents sacrificed in making sure I had the essentials. And that's why the way I try to live today, you know, you get what you need. I try to take a portion of my money all the time when I make it to give back to some organization with someone less fortunate, because it could have been me.
Well, in the second half, we're going to talk about a lot of your volunteer opportunities and things that you were involved in. I want to talk about U.S. Marshal. When President Obama appointed you to be the U.S. Marshal for the Eastern North Carolina District, that was a big deal. You went up to D.C., right, for that?
Yes.
And what did that entail? I mean, a lot of people wrote letters saying, I think, you know, I want to recommend him, right?
You're exactly right. And that's why I say, you know, I stand on the shoulder of all the citizens of this community and this great state. Blacks, white, Hispanic, male, female, I cannot say enough, came out of the woodwork to write letters for me. Sheriff, city officials, a lot of citizens came out and to support me. And keep in mind, I think I was the underdog, but I think because of the support of the community, the support of the diverse group, I was successful. So, I mean, I remember getting a call asking me to apply. And then I told them no initially. That when I got the first phone call, I said, because you know, keep in mind, I could have retired a long time ago had I not accepted the marshal position, because, you know, he was on a different retirement system. But, you know, and when I was on my way to the federal building when I got the phone call. But when I got to the federal building, I talked with two individuals there and explained to them. They said, you don't never say no, you know, and, you know, and we had a long talk. I prayed about it, and I called back and said, if it's still open, I would like to apply.
Well, and I heard that nobody's ever done as good a job. I mean, you went everywhere. You just worked it. You gave it your all.
Well, you know, any job any job that I have, my job is to make it that position better than I found it. And I try to work hard, but, you know, I'm all about customer service and respect. And even though I'm a law enforcement guy, the marshal service, I had to go out or went out with the personnel to make an arrest, which nobody wanted a family member arrested. But people must be held accountable, including me and anyone else. And so, you know, I would talk to the family, explain to them, and they understood.
And how many years did you do that?
I did that 7 years. I was the U.S. Marshal for Eastern North Carolina for 7 years. It was a very blessed to hold that position. I promised going into every sheriff. I had 44 sheriffs, and I promised that I will help them do a sex offender check, where we go out and check and sex offender, maybe it was in compliance in all 44 counties. So I was very blessed that accomplished that. All 44 counties with 44 sheriffs, we was able to successfully complete that.
That's a lot of sheriffs and a lot of counties.
And a lot of law enforcement officers, but we have great law enforcement and great sheriffs.
Well, and we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, you have just retired very recently as assistant with the Department of Motor Vehicles.
I just retired as
Assistant
Deputy
Director?
Commissioner, DMV.
Deputy Commissioner.
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
And what does that mean?
Well, I was Deputy Commissioner. You got a Commissioner, DMV, and at that time we had 2 Deputy Commissioners.
Okay.
I was over law enforcement, training, safety, and customer compliance section.
For the state of North Carolina?
Yes, ma'am.
And so were you commuting to Raleigh to do that?
Initially, I was commuting to Raleigh, but eventually, remember, they moved DMV to Rocky Mount, so I was here in Rocky Mount.
And I understand you were very helpful in setting up the old Hardee's building to be the headquarters.
Yes, once it was selected for that location, I was very fortunate. I worked for Commissioner Tory Jessup, and based on his experience working for GSA, and which set up federal building, we was able to set up the DMV here.
Well, and I don't discount the fact that you're living here and you're having been such a fabulous role model for all law enforcement. I really think that helped us get it here too.
Well, I mean, I think that once it was selected, I was not involved in the selection process, but once it was selected, we come here, we immediately reached out to different community organizations and community leaders to sit down and talk, help us recruit people and want their opinion, and they stepped up to the plate immediately.
Well, they would for you because you're easy to follow. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Scotty, we've kind of talked about local and all, well, not necessarily local, 44 counties in eastern North Carolina, but you have also really sought out working with people across the United States in other law enforcement things. And I know when you were with MBM, you headed up the security for their Western District, is that right?
West Coast, yes, ma'am.
And so you were back and forth some, as well as helping to make sure shrinkage, I think is what they called, trying to help people with shrinkage with that. But talk about the importance to our area that you've established all these connections all over the country.
Well, I think, initially being a narcotics enforcement officer, narcotics, especially, cocaine is not produced in Nash County. So we was trying to, when I say we, a narcotics office decided we need to all come together as one. So what we did was, I was very blessed as the president of the North Carolina Narcotics Enforcement Officers Association in North Carolina. We was able to get other states to come together, and we all met in Chicago and formed a national organization, and where gave us time to annually we go to D.C. to meet with the senators and the congressmen, explain them what's going on, talk about funding, and hope we get that funding back in North Carolina, make sure the funding for law enforcement continue to come to North Carolina. And that way you have a seat at the table. So I was very blessed in leading that, being one of the leaders of that effort, which made me realize how important it was to be, even though you're from North Carolina or you're from Nash County, you need to be in D.C. You need to have a seat at the table, which that's why I always try to do, even as I moved out of narcotics enforcement.
Well, I've heard that people from all over the country call you for advice. Is that true? I think I'm very blessed. Right now I serve on the International Association of Chiefs of Police Homeland Security Committee, and I feel very blessed because I find out what's going on internationally dealing with our homeland. We get briefings, and what does that involve? Do you go to D.C. for those?
No,
meetings,
we meet twice a year. In addition, we meet monthly on a call, teams call monthly, the group, people on that committee. But we was in Florida, we get a briefing from Homeland Security. We'll be in Chicago in November. We'll get a briefing from different, so we all communicate that's on the committee, but we get special briefings. But in being part of that is, it give me the opportunity to meet other people, nationally and internationally, to find out what's going on around the country, and when I find out what's going on, I share that with local law enforcement. It's make us a better person. Some things may not reached us yet, and we also get to share what's going on in our community. So I think what's made me successful is any meeting I go to, I try to lead there knowing a lot more people than I knew before I arrived. And I've just been very blessed my whole career of being able to pick up the phone, call somebody across the country. And, so a lot of law enforcement calling me, hey, do you know this person? Or do you know someone in this area? And I've been blessed. Some areas I do, some I don't, but I try to work hard because the citizens need someone that can reach out. People that commit crime here don't stay here. We had many cases where people commit crime here, maybe left and went to other countries or other states, and We need a relationship, and it's all about relationships. If you don't have a relationship, that person may not know you. It's been many times I called New York Police Department and got hung up on because it's such a large agency. But it's also, once you know someone from the agency, you call that person and they open the doors for you.
I heard you were going down to Florida to identify somebody one time, and they couldn't believe it was you coming because they already knew you, which helps.
Yeah, right. And I've been very blessed, working with other agencies where traveling with them to other states, and you call the person, let them know you're coming, and they will help you and tell you for your safety also.
Oh yeah. Scotty, through the years you've given back. You feel very committed to our community and have worked for Red Cross and a number of other things. Talk about some of your civic work that you've done.
Well, prior to 2010, and when I became the U.S. Marshal, I think the hardest thing they told me in order to accept this position was that I had to resign from every civic organization I was a member of. I mean, that's just the government part of the job. So at that time, I was on National Community College Foundation Board, which I chaired one year, the fundraiser. So I was, it was a passion. I was on the Right Center Board, which was a passion giving back. I was on the Red Cross, served on the Red Cross Board, the City of Rocky Mount when I lived in the City Human Relations Board. So I love giving back. I love helping people because I see is that a lot of people help me. I didn't get anything I have today without the support of the community and in certain positive individuals in the community. So I try to volunteer and give back, and that's what I'm trying. So now that I retired, I'm trying to, even though I'm going to stay busy, I'm really not retired. I'm just retired from the state. I want to be able to give back to the community. My goal is to do 2 scholarships, one for a volunteer fireman, one for a volunteer law enforcement. Somebody that's not able to afford to go be a volunteer fireman or go to school to be a law enforcement officer. So, I want to work to give back.
Well, you've never had any children, but I understand that you're a godfather. For the Wordsworth family, you are basically their best babysitter, and if you check in on them regularly when they're out of town, in Raleigh, and you're there and whatnot, you have created a huge family for yourself. People apparently fight over if you're going to have Christmas dinner with them, Thanksgiving dinner, if you're going to have the night before each of those. Everybody feels so blessed to have your friendship.
Well, I think it's about how you treat people. I try to treat, my whole life in law enforcement and public service, I always see people when they're in time of need. When people call a law enforcement officer, most time they in need of that law enforcement for some reason.
One of their darkest times. I know I called when our house burned down, and you jumped in and helped me in a need. And you're right. It's a time of great vulnerability.
And not only law enforcement. Keep in mind, when I was at Stone Creek Fire Rescue, 1 year I run 500 rescue calls. That's 500 people that's in need. Whether I'm cutting them out of a car, whether I'm trying to recover a body that's someone drowned. And you got to deliver that message to the family. Even as a law enforcement officer, a reputation of a tough law enforcement officer who arrests people. But as I explained to the family, my job is to hold people accountable for their actions. The citizens of North Carolina, Nash County, job is to hold me accountable. Even as the marshal, the people of East North Carolina, job is to hold me accountable. So what I try to do is treat everyone like I want to be treated. Now, and so, I'm always willing to help. I think I get more phone calls about how you doing than I get more phone calls about can you help me than I do how you doing. And I don't mind help because people know I'm about trying to help people. And that's what it's about. I wish everybody would do that.
Oh, I do too. And you were awarded the Order of the Longleaf Pine.
Yes, ma'am.
In 2002 by Governor Mike Easley. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
What did that mean to you?
Well, I was very blessed. I was very active in narcotics enforcement. I was teaching throughout the state about working undercover in narcotics enforcement. I was doing federal investigations. So some of the legislators recognized myself and two or three other individuals with narcotics enforcement. We was active in D.C., making them aware of what was going on in North Carolina. We put our blood, sweat, and tears into it, and we did it for the citizens of this great state and for the law enforcement. And so I was very honored to, at a young age, get the Order of Longleaf Pine Award.
I thought it was recent, in fact, when I heard you got it, but 2002, wow, you were young when you received that.
Well, the only reason I know, I was talking to somebody recently, and they said, "We shit, you got the Longleaf Pine Award 20 years ago." I didn't realize it was that long ago.
Probably because they wanted to give it to you again, and if you didn't already have it.
Well, maybe they thought, I hate to say this, maybe, they say give people flowers when they can smell it, so maybe they thought, I'm in such a dangerous job, we want to give it to you now. But I was very blessed to receive it. And any award I received many, many, many awards. But the awards were to me, but because of the people of the community, because without the people of the community and my supporters, and I would be nothing, I would be nowhere.
Well, I think a lot of us feel like our lives would have been greatly less rich without you, Scotty, and all you've done. Let's talk about a few more of your awards because we've got pictures. The Red Cross that honored you one year.
I got a Hero Award for the Red Cross one year.
Others you want to mention?
Oh, I received a lot of awards. I just, I try to when I get the awards, I just try to not make a big deal about it. I'm thankful for it, but I got to remember, I'm the one getting the award, but the award represent all my coworkers, all the people that have I work with that have killed in the line of duty or died and gone on.
Well, and that's another trait that a lot of your friends said. You're very humble, and I think humility is something that your faith, obviously, a person of great faith, and that's something we're encouraged to do as our faith. So that comes through very clearly. Let's talk about the future. You've alluded to it a little bit. We want you to stay around. We want to see you in this area. You've got a home in Red Oak.
Yes.
You're not going to go international or D.C. or something. You're going to stay here.
Yes, ma'am. If I leave Nash County, I feel like I'm a fish out of water. I believe in Nash County. I love Nash County. I believe in Eastern North Carolina. I love Eastern North Carolina. I have had many opportunities and calls to leave the area. I pray and hope I will never leave. I do not see in my future of ever leaving this area. We, the people that live in East North Carolina, people live in Nash and surrounding areas, don't realize. I think we take it for granted. We take the low. Everybody I think crime is not as bad in this area. I know it's not. So I just think people don't realize how fortunate and how fortunate we are to you to leave and travel to other areas. I know because I'm in meetings and people talk about it. I see it. I read about it. I talk with law enforcement. But we're very blessed in this area.
You've got a new opportunity that you're going to accept a couple days or after this interview. Can you go ahead and share that with us?
Yes, the governor's going to appoint me to has appointed me to the Criminal Justice Training Standards Commission, which is, you look at law enforcement training, law enforcement certifications. So I'll be on that commission. That's a volunteer commission to serve about 3 days a week every quarter. So we meet about 4 times a year. I haven't been sworn in yet, so I'll start tomorrow to go learn about it. Also, I'm gonna do some consulting. I started a consulting group. I do some consulting, and I'm a reserve deputy with Nash County Sheriff's Office. I've been a deputy at Nash County Sheriff's Office since January 95. I held my certification. Even as the marshal, I kept my certification there. Even at DMV, I kept my certification at Nash County. So I'm going to continue to work at Nash County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Stone had allowed me to continue to serve. So I'll probably be a little bit more active and volunteering with them. And I'm going to be active in the community. I just think that you got to give back. And nobody got where they are. I cannot say it enough. No one got where they are without someone supporting them. And my someone is all the people of the community, all the people of Eastern North Carolina.
Well, and you've got such a broad skill set, and you care, Scotty. That's always come through to everybody how much you care about all of us.
I love customer service. And, I think maybe if you criticize about anything, I'm criticized because my passion is making sure whatever agency I work at, when the citizen call, they pay. First of all, the citizens pay our salaries, and the citizens pay taxes, and they should be able to get the customer service or the service they need.
Do you think you're going to do some? I know you love barbecue. I hear you barbecue. You go to Sunnyside with your buddies.
Yes.
Judge Quentin Sumner and David Ferris and Bill Lanus and a bunch of those. A few more trips to Sunnyside Oysters.
Oh, I'm gonna go to Sunnyside. I love Sunnyside. I mean, I know the guys that work there that do the work there. So and they got great food. So I'll continue to go there. I've been very fortunate. Mike Bryan and David and some others invite me to dinner. And so I'll continue to go to eat with them and just have fun. I want to be active in the community, volunteer, give back. I cannot say give back enough. And support fire rescue and public service and represent the law enforcement officers who's been killed in the line of duty and the law enforcement officers that have died.
And keep being the wonderful friend that we've all always known you to be. And we thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us.